Before you buy a home on the Florida Gulf Coast, there are properties that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars after you move in, and most people don't realize it until it's too late. In this video, I'm going to walk you through types of properties that I tell buyers to slow down on or at least take a much closer look at before making a decision. Folks, if this is your first time tuning in, my name's Brant, relocation specialist right here along the Florida Gulf Coast. Been doing it for the last 7 years. And if you're considering moving to the Florida Gulf Coast, click the link in the first pinned comment. Download my free relocation strategy guide that'll connect us. I'll send you updates here about the Florida Gulf Coast, and you can ask me any questions that you may have. So let's dive right in. And house number one that I would be careful with are houses with low elevation. Anytime we come into a subdivision, we have to look at the elevation. Is the house one of the lower elevated homes on the street? Which way does the water drain from the house? Are there retention ponds in the area? What's the past history of the home? These things are all very, very important before you make the decision to move forward on a house. And here's really the biggest issue with lower elevation homes. It's not just water getting into the house. The bigger issue is that low elevation can affect insurance costs, future resale, peace of mind during storms, and long-term risk exposure in ways a lot of buyers don't fully think through in the beginning. You also need to understand with low elevation, we're not just talking about here on the Florida Gulf Coast, we're not just talking about one type of water issue. You have multiple possible water issues like heavy rain events, storm surge exposure, drainage issues, and sometimes rising groundwater in certain areas. A buyer may only be thinking, is this house in a flood zone? But that's too simple. A house could still have water issues even if the buyer thinks they are in the clear. Another mistake I see buyers make with these low elevation homes is asking the question, do we need flood insurance? Instead of asking the question, what does flood insurance cost right now? Even if you are not required to have flood insurance, flood zones change all the time. And so just because you're not required to have flood insurance right now doesn't mean that you won't down the road. I also recommend getting flood insurance. It's peace of mind. And just because you're comfortable purchasing a house doesn't mean that the next buyer is going to come along and feel the same way. So this is another reason that these low elevation homes could potentially cost you money in the future when you go to try to resell your house. You may be marketing this to a smaller pool of buyers. So you really need to think resale when purchasing these homes, even if the home has a great history. People are going to look at these low elevation homes and they're going to shy away from them just because of the risk factor. So for me, these low elevation homes fall into the category of not necessarily bad. Some of them are really nice, well-maintained homes. They just need to be homes that you know exactly what you're getting into before you purchase. And that's really the theme of this entire video. A lot of these homes are not necessarily bad because of how they look or how they're maintained. They're just a little riskier and they could cost you quite a bit of money later. Let's talk about number two. Now, number two can be a little bit controversial because some of these homes are built really, really well. Some would argue they're even built better than today's homes, but I would stay away, because we're in Florida, I would stay away from older homes that haven't been updated. Now, this one catches a lot of people off guard because on the surface, these homes look great. You walk in and say, wow, this is a nice house. It's priced well. It has character. We can always update things later. However, what many buyers don't realize is that on the coast, age hits homes differently than it does in other parts of the country. Between the humidity, the salt air, and all the storms, systems tend to wear down a lot faster, and when they go, it's not cheap. So when I say be careful with older homes, I'm really talking about the big ticket items that can quietly turn into major expenses. Let's talk about the roof. The roof is not just here to keep water out of your house. The roof is also tied to your insurance eligibility, your insurance cost, your ability to even close on a home in some cases. If the roof is getting up there in age, especially 12 to 15 years, depending on the material, insurance companies may charge you significantly more and require more replacement before closing, or they may not insure it at all. I've seen situations where buyers think they're getting a really good deal and then almost immediately they end up having to pay $15,000 to $20,000 to replace the roof. So this is something that you never want to figure out later. HVAC systems, electrical panels, and plumbing are other systems that you want to make sure are up to date before you move forward on a house. Because here's the reality of it. Certain things like your plumbing can seem fine until it's not. So you really want to make sure stuff like that is in good shape. And don't be fooled by some of these older homes that have the updated look but old bones. A lot of times these older homes will be flip houses, and I would stay far, far away from these, because what happens is, especially right now when cost to build and cost to repair are through the roof, I would stay away from these houses. A lot of these flippers cut corners trying to keep costs down. Those are the scariest to me, because a lot of times you'll walk in and things will look nice, but it's like lipstick on a pig. You've heard that saying before. Well, it's true. So I would stay clear of a flip house, and you can always tell a flip house as soon as you walk into it. Bottom line here, I've seen buyers save money up front by purchasing an older home that has not been updated and then blow through their savings over the next year having to fix things because of all the wear and tear. You want to avoid that. A lot of times people are looking for that home with character, and I understand that. A lot of these newer homes don't necessarily have the same character as some of these charming older homes. And I'm not saying don't buy an older home. I'm saying make sure that all the systems and everything has been updated. All right, that is very important. Let's talk about number three. And number three is waterfront homes that have not been well maintained. This can be a money pit like no other. Stuff that's really important that can add up very quickly on waterfront homes are stuff like your dock, your seawall. You would not believe how expensive it is to replace a seawall and a dock, okay? So those are two very, very important things. And a lot of these homes have dock problems and seawall problems because maybe they've been hit by a past storm. So when you're purchasing a waterfront home, you need to make sure everything is updated, or you're going to be spending a lot of, unless you can just get a great deal on that property and don't mind doing it yourself. The fact is, waterfront homes can be beautiful, desirable, and they can even be a great investment here in Florida, but waterfront properties come with a whole new level of responsibility. And here's where a lot of buyers have issues with waterfront home. The looks fine problem, or the landscape looks amazing problem. All right, both are issues. So they see a house with beautiful landscaping, waterfront views, and they're like sold on this property. So they're like, well, the house looks fine, everything looks fine, but you need to specifically look for early signs of seawall wear, aging dock structures, or deferred maintenance. And these are all types of things that don't always show up clearly until you start digging deeper. This is why it's very important, if you're going to move into a waterfront home or a more expensive home in Florida for that matter, is to get an inspection on everything. Get a specialist out there to inspect everything. A home inspector, a general home inspector, doesn't necessarily inspect for example, a general home inspector doesn't necessarily inspect pools or septic tanks or, sometimes docks or seawalls. So you want to get a specialist out there to look over everything before moving forward on the waterfront property of your dreams. Now, here's one of the most important things that you need to look into when purchasing a waterfront home is waterfront maintenance history. There is a major difference between a waterfront home that's been well maintained and one where things have been put off for years. All right, two homes can be right next to each other, same water, same view, but be in completely different financial situations. And we see this all the time with waterfront properties. And so this is where you need to be careful. You also have to understand that insurance is going to be a lot higher if you purchase on the water. Most people don't care, because if they're purchasing on the water, they usually have the financial capability to handle the higher insurance. It is going to be quite a bit higher. Now, I've told you in past videos, most of the insurance quotes that I see in this area, or for most homes, non-waterfront, are between $2,500 a year and $5,500 a year. Some maybe $6,000 at the year, something like that. Now, waterfront homes, they're going to be higher, okay? So I don't tell buyers to avoid waterfront homes. I just say, hey, let's go in with our eyes open. Waterfront properties are one property where I like a newer home, a newer construction home, or at least built in the last 10 or 15 years. When they sit on the water and they get this wear and tear from the salty air and the rain, and when they sit there for years and years and years, and especially with an owner that doesn't really maintain it, they become a problem house. And you can think you're getting an incredible deal deal on a waterfront home, and then after closing realize that, wow, you've got to fork over $100,000 for a new seawall. All right, that's the thing with these waterfront properties. When you have to fix something, it's not cheap. And I have investors come down all the time and they're like, oh man, this waterfront property, it looks like a great deal. Listen, if it looks like a great deal, it's probably going to end up being the most expensive waterfront home you've ever bought. That is my experience with waterfront property. These investors think they're getting a great deal on the water, but then once they purchase it or once they price everything out and get quotes, they're like, renovating this or repairing these homes on the water are sometimes going to be a lot more expensive than if you were to just buy a turnkey property that's on the market. Number 4, I want to talk about homes that are in overbuilt or transitioning areas. This is the location trap. And this one can be tricky because on the surface, everything looks great. The house looks nice. The photos look clean. The price might even seem like a good deal. But what's happening around the home can matter just as much as the home itself. Now, why does this matter on the Gulf Coast? Well, we have growth. We have new people moving in. We have new construction homes going up. Developers are developing all over the state. To some people, growth can seem like a good thing. But once you purchase that home and actually move in, you realize that it might not be what you signed up for. Another problem with these types of homes are the looks good online. All right, I see this with out-of-state buyers all the time. They'll find a home online and everything checks out. Good price, nice finishes, decent location on the map, but what you don't always see is traffic patterns, nearby development, short-term rental activity, or how busy the area actually is from day to day. And those are major things that can change how you feel when you live in an area from day to day. So what do I actually mean by overbuilt? Well, some areas, especially closer to the beach or high demand zones, can start to feel crowded, congested, or saturated with smaller homes. You might see tons of new construction packed in like sardines, limited parking, feeling like your neighbors are living on top of you. And it goes without saying, increased traffic. Now, depending on your personality type, you may be okay with this. Some people are perfectly fine with it. Other people want a quieter, spacious environment. So here's how I advise people that are relocating here to the Florida Gulf Coast, and this is really important. You want to spend some time in an area, not just one quick showing. You want to spend multiple days driving around an area, getting a feel for the area, looking at the area, eating at some of the restaurants, doing some outdoor activities, going on a hike, visiting the state parks, going to the grocery store, get a feel for what it would be to live there on a day-to-day basis. All right? You know, back in 22 and 23, buyers were having to purchase houses sight unseen. So we were seeing so many people move into Florida and then move out of Florida, and it's because they were moving in here so quickly without getting time to get a feel for the area. And so it's really important that if you're moving somewhere that you actually spend some time there, you know, spend a week there and get a feel for the area. You don't want to just move into an area and all of a sudden realize that you hate it. Reality is, I've seen a lot of buyers purchase homes sight unseen down here, and they have fallen in love with the house, okay, but realize that they didn't really love the area. So with this particular section, I'm going to leave you with this. Location isn't just a mark on a map. It's how you feel when you're there. How do you feel energetically about the place? That's very, very important. And the fifth one, and this is the last one I'm going to do today. I'll probably do a part 2 with this, but you want to stay away from houses, and this goes without saying, and I've talked about this a lot in previous videos. You want to stay away from homes that are priced in a different market, okay? If they're not priced for the current market, those are homes that you need to stay away from, because right now there are a lot of homes out there that are priced like it's 2022 or 23, when in reality, we're in a much different market. The sellers just aren't emotionally up to this market. And here, I see this all the time, and this drives me absolutely nuts. But a seller will say, hey, I want to list my house, and I'm thinking $550 will be a good price. The agent knows that $550 is not the market value for that house. The agent knows that the market value for that house is $460, $475, but the agent agrees to take the listing and says, yeah, I'll list it at that, no problem. And then, you know, if we're not getting any looks, we'll reduce the price. This is the agent buying the listing, basically saying, yeah, I'll list it for this price and let it sit 100 days on the market. That is, in my opinion, a little bit unethical, but I see this with listing agents all the time. And so if you see these houses that are way overpriced, it's because you either have a listing agent that's semi-unethical or desperate because they want a listing. I'm not a listing agent, I'm just a buyer's agent, okay? So if you see these homes way overpriced, you either have a seller that is emotionally not living in today's market, or maybe they're not educated on today's market. That could be it too. A lot of times sellers might not be educated, and their real estate agent won't educate them because they want the listing. You see what I'm saying? So an agent won't be upfront and truthful with them and say, hey, your house is not worth $550, it's worth $475 because they want to get that listing. You see what I'm saying? But then it doesn't do anybody any good, because now you've got a listing that sat on the market for 200 days and didn't sell. That looks bad on the agent that took the listing in the first place. So you really want to stay away from these homes. They're all over the place right now, and they're not in alignment with the current market. Now, on the flip side of that, if you see a home that's been on the market for 200 or so days, which they're out there, a lot of times you have a seller that's getting impatient and they're kind of panicking. They gotta move in 30 days, and their house is set for 175 days. A buyer can slip in and make a lot lower offer and potentially get that house. I've done multiple deals over the past 3 or 4 months where I've had to have a kind of a come to Jesus meeting with the listing agent and be like, listen, your house is overpriced and it does not align with the current market. You're gonna need to tell your seller that if he wants to sell this house. Sometimes that works and we've done deals, but that's just the market we're in right now. You're never gonna change the real estate industry. Real estate agents are always gonna have a negative public perception, any kind of salesman, anytime. But in reality, we're all in sales, right? Everybody's trying to sell. You had to sell your wife to go out with you on the first date. If you've worked in retail before, you've sold something. Like, just about everything we do in life is selling. I get it. Salesmen have a bad negative public perception. I get it. I understand that. There are a lot of shady realtors out there, and they do stuff like I was just talking about, which I don't like. Most of the shadiness comes from the listing side of things. Now, there are shady buyer's agents too. There are things you can do as a buyer's agent. And I'm getting off track here. I'm rambling, but you know what? It's a beautiful day. I'm sitting outside. I'm just rambling. There are shady stuff a buyer's agent can do, like, for example, tell you not to get inspection. Be like, hey, there's multiple offers on a house over here. You need to just waive inspection if you want to get this. If you love this house, just waive inspection. You never need to waive inspection. If anything, slow down. If you don't get the house, move on to the next one. You don't want to ever buy a house that is not right for you, folks. I'm gonna end with that. We'll probably pick up with a part 2. I've got about 5 or 10 more of these that I want to share with you in the future. Again, folks, all my information is linked in the description below. Download my free relocation strategy guide. Let's connect. Hey, you can always reply back to any of the emails I send you and ask me any questions that you have. You can text me, call me, email me. My email's in the description as well. We'll catch you next time.